about Billy Porter and this whole controversy around his performance. The first thing I want to say is that no actor is going to come in and just make their own decisions about how, whatever. Like, yes, you have the freedom, but sometimes you have to, it's a conversation, it's a collaboration between actor and director. Yes, you have ideas and you come in with your ideas and you this is what this was what I'm working with, right? And then the director will steer the boat. That's theater, right? Like, you don't arbitrarily decide things. So I'm sure that whatever changes that Billy Porter has made, or ad-libs, or the breaking of the fourth wall, were things that were considered by both, that maybe Billy Porter brought right to the stage, but then that it was a conversation between actor and director. Even if Billy Porter is a Broadway star, I'm going to be honest, I don't think that that's going to fly. The only circumstance I can see that happening is when there's a Hollywood star that comes in and they're putting money into the production. Because I'm going to be honest, not even at Chris Evans level, and he's a huge Hollywood star, would I see a situation where he's just coming in and doing whatever he wants and there isn't a conversation with the director. And
so in the first one, I was talking about how you can't ignore the fact that he's black, or that
which is what I'm saying. It all of a sudden are black, right? You cannot ignore that. It's a very colorblind casting,
very small,
and it never works because race is a component, especially during that time. So it needs to be considered. It needs to be a conversation needs to have been had between director and artist here, right? All the characters, all the actors that portrayed these characters. In fact, there was this production of what was it? Maybe it was Hamlet or something. It was this production where the father was white and the actor was black. And it was a production in the UK. And this happens in the UK all the time. They'll cast the actor is white, the dad is white, and then the son is black, or Southeast Asian or something. And so the actor was for me, I needed to consider all the components, how I as a black man move through this world now. And I thought it was such an important point, because you cannot divest race when you cast. It's not colorblind casting, because then you're not doing the work justice, you're not doing the actors justice. You need to have this conversation of what added layer can we bring to this production and to this, what are the similarities, for instance, in Cabaret, what are the similarities between the genocide of the 1930s and the genocide of the slave trade, or of what happened in the United States during segregation, or how black people were killed across during segregation. These conversations need to happen behind the scenes. And so many of those choices could have been that conversation between director, production, cast, whatever. Because now you have a whole new layer to contend with that you didn't before. Because if you cast a white person in that role, you can just ignore, he's just a general white person, right? He could be a Nazi sympathizer. He's in there for a reason. We don't know what it is, but you don't need to really unpack that. But you do need to unpack it when you bring people of color and it adds color to the production. The only thing is that you cannot minimize, with a caveat, you cannot minimize the original story, right? Because it is a story about what happened to Jewish people. And what is beautiful about casting people of color in that production is that you can elevate it, right? But you have to elevate it. You have to elevate both sections. You have to set up in the minds of the people both like how these genocides were so similar, right? If that was like the avenue that they were going to, and I don't know that was the avenue they were going to. This is just my thoughts on it. So he goes on to say, I think this is the issue that people are having with the production, that it actually, instead of highlights how both are so similar,
black people have replaced the Jews in this sort of configuration.
It brings down the tonality of this to highlight this, right? When that's not really what the musical is about. And so it minimizes how fascism works. Because this is a true story. It's a musical about a true story. And we could have had this other color. I don't mean that like literally. I mean like this other layer added to it of like seeing all the ways that like, genocide can happen. But instead they kind of chose to like tone this down, which was like, minimize like really what happened to the Jews in order to highlight this other thing, which I'm not even clear on what the other thing was, because it's not set up. Now, mind you, I have not seen the full production, so I'm not, just take my comments. If they don't serve you, throw them out. But that's, but I would have liked like a highlighting of both, because then you set up in the minds of the audience the similarities between these genocides. And that's how you like deal with it. And whenever like you have to talk about it, you have to like have this conversation. And from what I'm taking from, and this is just what I'm taking from Billy Porter's comments, I think that this was more or less, this comment was more or less kind of the avenue that they were going down, of how black people have replaced the Jews in this sort of configuration, right? Which there is some truth to that. There is some truth to that. Anti-Semitism still happens across the world, but in terms of massive genocides, yeah. With that said, let's talk about his performance now. From what I've taken from the clips on TikTok, I think Billy Porter is such an amazing artist. Like, he really has a style all his own, so I don't want to like critique that. I will say this, that I think that there are certain actors that are transformational actors that let go of the self in order to embody a character, and that there are actors who play themselves across the board, right? And I think Billy Porter is in the latter and not the former. With that said, it doesn't take away his talent. It doesn't take away how amazing he is, how beautifully he performs. But I think another creator was talking about how like it kind of like read as like very Hamilton-esque. And I think that's because of this component. When you play yourself across the board, sometimes you don't meld yourself to the style of the show. And I would say Cabaret is very highly stylized. It is a very highly stylized production, and it requires, even when layering all this added thing that like adds so much beauty to it, that it requires someone to be able to transform themselves, because it is a musical within its time, within a certain specific setting, a specific style, a specific time period. And it requires an actor that can do that kind of transformational stuff, or that can act, in a more classical sense, But again, I'm not minimizing Billy Porter's work. His work is so beautiful, but it wasn't the right choice for this specific production. So the choices that he makes or the way he sings doesn't quite fit with Cabaret, and it has, you know, everything to do with the kind of actor, which again, I'm not saying one is better than the other, but this production would require that kind of actor because of his stylization, because it requires you to let go of your modern self and your modern, like, how you tell a story with your body, right? I can't, like, you know, jump my hip out when I'm doing like a Shakespeare piece set in like Romeo and Juliet set in like medieval Italy, right? I can't just pop a hip unless it's a modern retelling, because that there is a certain stylization, there is a certain way that you need to hold your body. There are choices physically, vocally, that you need to make in order to be within the construct of this play or this musical. My opinion is that, and this is just my personal opinion, I actually celebrate them for doing something different with this production. Because what happens on Broadway and in a lot of theater in New York is that they create the same thing over and over and over again, and they're never pushing the envelope. And I'm not going to say never, because obviously we get some amazing productions like Hamilton. We get amazing productions. I remember I saw like a version of the Scottish play, it being a one-man show, and that show changed my life, because I was like, yes, that's what I want to do. I want to like rethink it. I want to like take it apart and put it back together again. That's the artist I am. And so when I see something that means progress and means pushing the envelope on Broadway, off Broadway, in any theater level of New York theater, I'm always like, good for you. Good for like trying something different. You know, we need to be casting more POC. Obviously there were some kinks, you know, like there were some choices that were made that are not people's favorite, but we had the same conversation with Eddie Redmayne. And the thing is that I think that there's like this idea that people have of their perfect production of Cabaret, of their perfect production of The Waitress, of their favorite whatever. You know, it happens a lot also with Green Lady. Wicked. Because it's been like 10-15 years on the boards now, and so people have this image of what they love. People have this image of what they love, and they won't want it to stray away. I sort of I give up on creating content, because like, what the fuck. Today was just hard for content creation. Yeah, like, you know, and so there's this, but as artists, we need to be pushing the envelope. We need to be, and I thank the kind of artist I am today, and I hope I'm pushing envelopes, but you never know, you know? Yeah, during that pushing of envelopes does do things like sometimes not work. Yeah, you know, that's part of the creative process. It's part of like growth as an artist. It's part of like learning. But, you know, good for them for like, you know, giving it the old college try. It's just a different form of cabaret. And I think that that's what makes it beautiful, you know? Anyway, even if you didn't like it, I have no opinion because I didn't see the full production. So, but I unpacked what with the information that I had. So take it with a grain of salt. Bye.